An interested viewer wants to know, can my son use my gun to stop a home invader? He's 17. We'll talk about that. There's lots to talk about on this topic. But first, we have a gun giveaway going on. It's happening right now. It's absolutely free, but it ends really soon. All you need to do is click the link in the description down below to learn which brand new gun you could win. Okay, so can my son use my gun to defend against a home invasion? Well, able and allowed are two different things. Is your son able to use that firearm? Has your son had training? Does your son know where the gun is? Does your son have access to the gun? There are a lot of different questions that we can answer. We can talk about this. So we've had news reports of children as young as 12, I think maybe even a 10-year-old, has used a firearm to stop a home invader, because the child knew where the gun was, had access to it, and had training and knew what to do. Yes, your child can use that gun to stop a home invasion, but there may be some legal questions surrounding that. Again, there will be a thorough investigation of any use of deadly force. Even in a castle doctrine state where it is a clear home invasion, the investigators are going to show up and they're going to ask a ton of questions. That's the way the legal system works, and that's the way we want it to work. We want people to be held accountable for their actions. You're responsible for the legal use of your gun. Now, this might be a justified legal use of the gun, and they're going to look at it. Some states have very strict laws that say if a minor gets hold of your gun and uses it for illegal purposes, you can be held liable. If the investigator determines that your 17-year-old son illegally killed someone with your gun, you could be held liable. So understand that. Now, other things that we're going to have to talk about is, does your son have access to the gun, and does your son or child, whoever, know how to use this firearm effectively? I'm very happy to tell you that I started my children shooting firearms at age 7. So that was when we started talking about gun safety, and we had a little single shot .22 rifle, a real gun, not a BB gun. We got out there and I stressed to them the elements of firearm safety and firearms use. And I truly believe that those kids now could effectively use a firearm at close range. They're probably not great shots because they haven't really kept up with the shooting the way I did, but they could use a firearm effectively at close range to defend themselves. If you have not shown your children firearms, have not talked to them about gun safety or effective gun use, you need to start doing that right away. Because again, being allowed to do something and being able to do something are two completely different ideas. Legally, you might be allowed to do it or you might not be allowed to do it. Whether or not you have the ability to do that and do so effectively comes from training and education and understanding what you're capable of doing. It's very important to make sure that your children are included in all of your home defense planning, because they might be there. They might have to take an active part in what's going on. You might not be there. The crime might happen when you're not there, and they need to remember what they're supposed to be doing. So please involve your children at the age you feel appropriate. I'm not going to dictate age. Just because I started my kids at 7 doesn't mean you have to. Maybe your kids aren't ready for that, or maybe you aren't ready until they're older. Choose the age you feel appropriate and involve your children in your home defense planning so that they understand what's going on. But again, if your child uses a gun to defend your home, there will be the same amount of investigation that there would be with anybody else, and maybe even a little bit more, because people are going to ask, where did they get the gun? Why was the gun not locked up? All sorts of other questions are going to come into play. But the truth of the matter is that those questions, yes, it's illegal for a minor to possess or use a firearm in most states and in most cases. But because that minor used the gun to protect life, that's going to override what's going on. We used to have an old saying in Wisconsin before there was a concealed carry law here in the state, was that if you used your gun legally, the fact that you were carrying it is the least of your problems. If you used your gun illegally, the fact that you were carrying it is the least of your problems. So the laws that govern whether or not a child can have access to a firearm are I don't want to say less important, but they carry less weight than things like aggravated assault, attempted murder, or murder. Those sorts of things. The fact that your child got hold of a gun and used it to shoot someone, the got hold of a gun part is important, but using it to shoot someone it carries much more weight when it gets to court and things like that. So if they did everything right and they stopped the bad guy and it was illegal for them to have the gun, I think the prosecutor is probably going to decline to charge those other, what we might call offenses, if they are illegal in your state. But you want to make sure that you check your state laws, that you have spoken with your attorney if you have one, that you understand the potential problems that could surround this situation. Want to know the 3 biggest mistakes when carrying a handgun? Then click on the video next to me to reveal all 3 mistakes. Mistake number 2 may shock you. Everybody has their own cardinal rules for what they're going to do when they're carrying a gun, but right now I'm going to give you 3 things that you must never do